We get asked all the time, why didn't we just buy an RV that was already made instead of going through all the trouble of building a custom do-it-yourself van? And I've got answers to those questions, so we're going to go through that in this video. I'm going to take you step by step through our process of why we built a van instead of buying an RV already made. Another question we get all the time, that's not true. Another question Kurt gets all the time is, how in the world did you talk Snow into living in a van? And there's a funny answer to that question, but I'm going to let Kurt answer it right here. And then I'll come back and take you through our thought process when we were making the decision of buying an RV versus building a van.
Believe it or not, we didn't even know what van life was when we bought our Sprinter van. Now, we didn't have a chance to romanticize van life and to see all the beautiful vans out there and how people were living. We just didn't know. If we go back in time to what Snow describes as Kurt came home and said, we're moving to Thailand moment, that was actually a several week process. And we talked about what we were going to do for the next chapter of our lives. And we both quickly agreed that we wanted to travel the world. And once we decided that, it was a matter of logistics in terms of how we accomplished that. And based on our previous travel experience, the first thing that came to mind for us was, let's just do Airbnbs maybe for a month or 3 months or whatever at different locations. We can, fly to those locations and explore and stuff like that. But flying from location to location didn't really work out with the kiddies. And so we thought about maybe putting a capper on the back of our pickup truck. And then that way we would have a vehicle as we drove around and did the Airbnbs. But again, we just didn't think that really kind of fit with what we wanted to do. And I came up with the brilliant idea of an RV. And so without telling Snow, I snuck off and started kind of looking at them and investigating. And I was really kind of impressed with the size and some of the amenities and some of the other things like that. And I came back and I was excited. I said, Snow, I got a surprise. And she's like, what? And I was like, I went and looked at RVs. They're so cool. And she was like, no way, Kurt, I'm not doing an RV. And so I talked her into at least going and looking at them. And we got there and we started looking at them. She just, even though they were nice, you could just tell right away they weren't for her. But when she saw the Sprinter van, and I think this one was done by Winnebago or one of those companies like that, and she said, I could do one of those. Now, in hindsight, I think I was suckered because I think she looked at the shell of that van and said, Kurt can build me what I want. But I'm going to let her tell you the reasons why she decided for a Sprinter van over an RV.
So that's right, guys. It was my idea, and I actually had to twist his arm a little bit to buy into this whole living in a van thing. But it turned out pretty good in the end. But let's go through those steps. The first one, when we decided we were going to take a vehicle literally on a journey around the world, that means, driving through the safari country of Africa, driving across the salt flats in Bolivia, through the mountain ranges of Central America, possibly during rainy season, the northern tip of Norway to see the northern lights, through the country there. And with all that comes the possibility of some pretty rough roads. So having a 4-wheel drive vehicle was extremely important in this decision-making process. Now, that eliminates almost every motorhome out there. I know there are 4-wheel drive options, but that was the first item in our list, and it knocked a bunch of RVs out. So number 2 on the list, guys, is the width of the vehicle. Not on the inside. The width of these things on the inside would actually probably be a negative. But the width on the outside, this thing is no wider than the SUV I drove for years before we started this whole new lifestyle. And I feel 100% comfortable driving it. Most RVs are at least a foot wider, maybe more, even the smaller ones. And this turns really easy, which is important, and can fit into the width of a parking spot. Now, we are a bit long, so unless it's a bigger parking lot, we do need to be able to pull through and, take 2 parking slots, but only lengthwise, not widthwise. So this thing will spin right into a parking spot without having to do like 3 or 4 point turns. Very nice. I feel completely safe driving this thing in the beach towns in Mexico, through downtown Chicago, on winding little mountain roads, and I have no concerns. And that was important to me. I wanted to feel safe driving this thing and not be all tensed up and stressed out, because I also didn't want Kurt to have to drive this thing 100% of the time. That wouldn't be fair, and it wouldn't be fun. I definitely like to drive. As you can see, I drive a lot, maybe even more than Kurt, especially on the curvy mountain roads. He will deny that, but it's true. So the width of the vehicle, very important. Now, let's move on to the next one. Number 3, possibly the biggest item on the list. Now, we're not going on a 1-year journey driving this thing across the United States on an epic road trip. We're not even doing the Pan Am Trail from Alaska to Argentina for 2 to 3 years. So this isn't a vehicle that we're going to take to the beach for 2 weeks in the summer, into the mountains in the fall for a week, or on weekend camping trips. This is literally our home. Our only home, not a vacation home. Our full-time home for the next 10 to 12 years. So I wanted it to feel that way. I wanted to be able to add custom touches to make it feel like home and have our style. Like these little birds behind us and my kitty cat doorknobs, little things like that. Now I know we could have easily made those changes to an already made RV, but there's bigger things that come with this category. Shower size. Now, unless you get one of the monster coaches, the showers in RVs are just not practical for long-term use, at least not for us. I need to be able to turn around in the shower. Plus, the showers seem to be completely wasted space unless you were showering. So our walk-through shower hallway design is perfect. We have a nice size shower and it's not wasted space. That's not something we could find in an RV. And guys, we did go look at several RVs before we made this decision. Another thing is the toilet situation. First, we did not want to deal with a black tank. Now, if we were just in the United States, maybe in Canada and a little bit of Mexico, you can do the black tank. But Guatemala doesn't have dump stations. Are there going to be dump stations in the middle of Kenya? I don't think so. So we needed a different kind of system to deal with the waste that comes with living in a van. So we went with the composting toilet and a gray water tank, which is much easier to deal with in these other countries. Also, the size of the toilets. Again, for maybe a year or some weekend or week trips, no problem. But for a long-term home, I wanted a comfortable toilet, a real size toilet. And I just couldn't find that in an RV. And we were able to do that in the van. So another part of being able to customize it is we just didn't want to deal with propane. And there's many reasons, and I'm not going to go through them here because we did a whole video on that and you can watch that right here. But we did not want propane, which every RV we walked into had propane. When we asked, is there anything without propane? They're like, oh, you can't do that. You have to have propane. But we knew there had to be a different way to do this because we just didn't want to be dealing with propane for many reasons. So that was another thing we just couldn't find. We could not find an RV that fit what we were looking for a long-term journey around the world. Number 4. Now, I know we are not a stealth van. And if you don't know what stealth is, that is a van that literally looks just like a work vehicle and could park anywhere and nobody could tell you were living in it. We know that. We're not claiming to be a stealth van. But in some of the places we're going, security reason wise, we did not want to stick out quite as much as an RV would. And the outside storage doors, where you put your lawn chairs and all that are accessible from the outside, we didn't want to deal with the security of those being maybe a bit easier to get into than the attic storage we were able to build. Also, we needed our bikes to fit inside of the van for weather purposes because they're electric bikes, and we don't want them to get stolen. Most RVs aren't capable of doing this unless, again, you go to the really big ones, which wasn't an option for us. So, it's a bit more secure. We feel a bit more secure in this in some of the countries we're going to. and being able to secure our belongings inside of the van rather than everything being kind of more accessible outside. So that was number 4. Number 5. This one was almost a deal breaker for any RV, even if we could find the one that would work. And that is, and this question is also going to answer something we get asked a lot, is how do we drive a van around the world because of, how do you get from continent to continent? Well, it goes on a cargo ship. And there are many ways to do that. And we've learned a lot while we were researching this whole thing. And one way you can do is if you have a big motorhome, you can do something called roll on, roll off of a cargo ship, which means you go through customs, you park your van there, you give your key to the people that work inside the shipping yard. And when it's time to load the ship, they drive your motorhome down into the belly of the ship. And they have your key. And then 2 or 3 weeks later at the other port, they drive it out and they park it there, and then you can come get it. That whole time, your vehicle is not secure. We've heard horror stories. Now, there are plenty of good shipping companies, and it doesn't happen all the time, but there is a high percentage rate where you hear people missing things on the other end. It could be little things, the radio, out of the dash, or, their coffee pot, little things. But we've also heard of the vehicles getting 100% stripped down, alternators, batteries, all the electronics gone, and there's really nothing you can do about that. So roll on, roll off to ship our vehicle from, South America to South Africa was not an option. The other option is cargo container. So those big containers that you see them stack up on the cargo ships? We have to be able to fit in one of those. That's a challenge, and it would never happen with an RV. It will be tough in this van, but it will be doable. So we get asked this a lot. The attic that Curt built comes off in 2 pieces. Now, it's not something that pops off in a couple of hours. It's a 1 to 2 day process, but it comes off. The fans pop out, and you take the tire pressure and lower it extremely. And then you are just barely short enough to squeeze into one of these shipping containers. Then, everything's locked up. No one has access to your vehicle while it's in the customs area, while it's being loaded onto the ship, while it's on the ship. So it's just much safer. So number 5 on the list is we needed our vehicle to fit inside of a shipping container. And there's almost no RV that could do that. So those are the 5 reasons. Along the way of our journey, we found pros and cons of an RV versus a van, but we are very happy with our decision. And I hope that answers you guys' questions. It's not the same answers that you might have. So if you're trying to make the decision, you need to think about what you want, what you need. Because in many ways, an RV is easier because it's not all of the work of building it if you're not handy. And, maybe in some cases more affordable. So with that, I'm going to leave y'all a little montage of us driving down some crazy roads and parking in some pretty cool places that we don't think could happen with an RV. And we'll see y'all next time. Cheers, guys. If you liked this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when we put out new videos. To see behind the scenes action and help support our journey, head over to our YouTube membership page. You can find the link in the video description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in a few days.